If I can qualify as an alcoholic and your ears are open tonight and you identify with some of the things that I have, not problems other than alcoholism, because that's nothing else. You're not going to have all the ones I got, I guarantee it. But if you identify with the alcoholism that I have, then maybe you'll see that there is a solution. And hopefully I'm a good example of that tonight. That's my intent tonight. I don't want to be a bad example of Alcoholics Anonymous tonight. I may be the only example you listen to tonight. It may, and you know what? For the most part, I may not be. If you're not an alcoholic, this is an open meeting and you're very welcome to be here tonight. I hope that you feel welcome too. You don't have to identify as an alcoholic at an open AA meeting. Open AA meetings are intended to have everybody in the community attend it. If you're not an alcoholic, and more importantly, if you have no history, if you don't have a history of a drinking problem, you're still welcome here as an observer. Don't participate. You're an observer. I wouldn't want my mom sharing at an AA meeting. We don't want you sharing at an AA meeting because this singleness of purpose is one alcoholic relating to another alcoholic. Open AA meetings are intended for everyone to attend as observers and alcoholics or people with a history of a drinking problem and a desire to stop drinking participants. There's a difference. Everybody understand that? Some people don't get that. I'm not a drug addict. I hate to burst your bubble. You don't have to be the same. You know, it's not the same thing, at least not in my case and not in a lot of people I know. I'm an alcoholic. I did drugs. But looking back over my life, and I've been sober since August 9th of 1987, which is 33 years, so I've had a lot of time to look over my life. I've looked over my life with a fine-tooth comb. Hindsight is 20/20. I am not a drug addict. I've looked over my life. I have used drugs. But when I saw, when I was 8 years old, I grew up in Venice. I grew up in a neighborhood called Venice, where the debris met the sea. It was not rich people yet. The BMWs had never found us. It was scary for people to wander into. Tourists did not come visit our neighborhoods. We had a 1% motorcycle club in our neighborhood that ran solely unchecked. We had 2 gangs in our neighborhood that wore either a South Side color or a blue color. And actually there was a third group of people that were suicidal tendencies kind of guys. And if people stepped out of line, they got checked. There wasn't a question. That's where I grew up. That was my neighborhood. I didn't show anybody any disrespect if I didn't expect to get checked, right? I understand that. I don't need to learn that in school. I didn't learn it much in school at all. I learned most of my life skills on the streets of Los Angeles, California. I loved the school on the streets, the School of Hard Knocks. It looks like a lot of you guys have gone through that school, banged up a bit, because that's how I came here. I didn't come here with, brought up behind a white picket fence. When I stepped off of my property at 8 years old, I was stepping over HAs that were strung out on heroin in front of my house. I looked at that and I thought, I don't ever want to do heroin. He's strung out. I could pick his pockets. That's what I saw. I saw weakness. And I saw the way people treated people that were strung out in my neighborhood. You could have been a bad person, and once you got strung out in my neighborhood, they would just, the wolves would just circle you. I watched people, I was hanging out with my friends, we were all little kids, and their parents were all these people. And a bunch of motorcycles pulled up on the front lawn. In those days, people parked their motorcycles in the living rooms. That's the truth. It's strange nowadays that people have their motorcycles outside with motorcycle covers and worry about keeping it clean. Out there, you put a piece of cardboard on your rug because it leaked, and put your motorcycle inside. The doors were sometimes widened so that they can get in. And we're sitting there getting wasted in the living room like normal kids. And all these guys showed up, banged around the house, took my friend's mom, took her in the back bedroom. It was not a nice thing. They came out, they took the guy's bike because he was in prison. Maybe he had ratted somebody. And they took everything and they left. And that's what I saw. I didn't want to get involved in all that stuff. You know what I mean? I didn't want to get involved in that. I saw a lot of bad stuff. And then another group came in. Then they started having conflict. And then a third group came in and they started having conflict. And it was just conflict. I really needed to drink to break away from the feelings that I was having. It was too intense. As a child at 8 years old, before I started drinking, way late in life. I mean, I was already 11 years old when I started drinking. So I felt like I was almost a grown-up. And as a little 8-year-old kid, all the people that I looked up to, all the neighborhood kids that were 18 years and older, I would do whatever they asked me to do because I wanted their approval. I wanted them to, first of all, to have my back in case of an altercation. Number one, right? Survival. 2, I wanted their approval to allow me to do the things that they were doing because it looked like they had figured out something. I looked at these 18-year-old plus people like grown-ups, and they appeared to me to have figured out a way to live a completely free life on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's what it looked like. Nobody looked like they had a job. Nobody looked like they cared. And they had places they were living. I didn't realize that they hadn't paid rent. I didn't realize that they were selling things out of the back door of the house. I didn't realize a lot of the things that were happening. But I saw what I saw, and I figured they'd figured out a way to live the way I wanted to. Come on in. There's seats open up in the front right there. You know, I finally convinced older people to give me something at 11 years old. That's why it took that long, because I started trying to get something at 8 years old. You know, as a little boy, I threw rocks. I could have a whole 12-step program on rock throwing. I could talk about rocks. I mean, you may be an alcoholic and something. I'm an alcoholic and a rock thrower and a whole bunch of other things. Rock thrower, I was a rock thrower. They created fences around bridges because of people like me, because they didn't have them when I was a kid. And boy, did I use Pacific Coast Highways as target practice. Not proud of it, but it's what I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Kirk might be recording this, so I have to keep a lot of details out. I apologize. I started drinking at 11, chiefly for the effect produced by alcohol. I never thought beer tasted good. I just wanted to get, if I could get some whiskey and some beer together and I could mix them, the beer would be the chaser for the whiskey, so I didn't taste the bad taste of whiskey, because I didn't really like the way it tasted first. But after a couple of sips, it doesn't matter. My mouth gets a little more numb to it, I sold oregano to gang members like a dumb person because I'd see them lose a fight with another group, and that's stupid. That's stupid to do. And I'm thinking these guys lost the fight. It's okay. Now, I remember when drive-by shootings started in Los Angeles, because I was a target of one of those drive-by shootings at the very beginning of it. And on Penmar Park in Venice, California, we were hanging out with a bunch of losers in the park like myself, and we were just listening to whatever music we had with the boombox. Everybody's getting, wasted on everything that we had. And all of a sudden, this blue van shows up, doors open. I was like, whoa, I'm 5'7" today on a good day with high wind. I was a lot shorter then. Thank God, because I touched that grass and it was wet grass, and I just tried to become a blanket. It scared me to death. And I realized at some point in my life, I was not going to make it to 18 years old. I was going to make it to 21, definitely. I was not going to make it. I could see clearly where my life was heading. My life, I was going to be a John Doe. I was going to amount to nothing. I hadn't amounted to anything. I was going to be a John Doe. I was going to be found in a gutter with a toe tag on me, and that was it. That's where I saw my future. That's my truth. That is my, my parents would say, why don't you find some kind of like career or find your talent? And I'm like, I'm good at being bad. I'm good at being irresponsible, and I'm good at not communicating well. And I'm very good at getting into trouble. The one real talent I had was I had a nickname in the neighborhood called the Alibi. Because if you were getting into trouble, you would come hang out with me, and I would cover for you. Somehow, I would keep us out of trouble. Like Christopher could have used me some. I know that. But that's what happened to me, You came to me when there was somebody got stabbed in the forehead, and this guy had nothing to do with it. He was just drunk. And so they grab him, throw him over with me, and go, hey, go take him over at the alley over there. I'm like, cops, I knew how to talk to police officers in a way that didn't get other people implicated, I paid attention to the grown-ups. They told me, if you're going to commit a crime, do it alone. I listened. A lot of people didn't listen to that. They got picked up. They said, if you're going to do it with somebody that runs slower than you. Made perfect sense to me. If you're doing it with somebody and they get picked up, don't forget to put money on their books and throw them a party when they get out. Those were the skills that I came to Alcoholics Anonymous with. I did not understand about paying your bills. I had never tried to pay a utility bill. I had no idea what it was like to have car insurance. I used your vehicle at times to stop my car, and it's a true story. I would stop my car because I had already been driven too long on the e-brake, and I would ram into the back of your car on accident. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous with a 1967 Datsun 610. If you don't know what they are, they look like a Mr. Magoo car. It has 4 doors. It's orange. It had a bunch of dents in it. And there was all my friends and I would drive around in it. And I drove with the e-brake, so I had no brakes. And we hit a Mercedes-Benz once, and we all jumped out and got crazy on the person, so they would just leave, so we wouldn't deal with the consequences. You know, I didn't like dealing with consequences. And I'm a runner. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I'm not just a rock thrower or an alcoholic. I'm a runner. I could give a 12-step talk on just running. I'm a runner. I don't think anyone has gone further than I have. Has anyone in this room gone to the other side of the earth they're standing on right now? The other side. The whole opposite globe, southern from northern, east from west. I mean, I did. Because I picked up a globe one day. We used to have globes. Instead of Google Maps, we had globes. And I put my finger on Los Angeles, and I put my finger on the opposite, and it's actually the Indian Ocean, and the closest landmass is the island of Reunion. So I tried to figure out how to get to the island of Reunion. Mind you, I was already in Europe doing something else. I ran. I bought one-way tickets, and I ran. You know, I remember paying for that ticket. I had no idea what was going to happen when I got there, and I'd land at an airport. I did not speak their language, but I'd show up and try to figure it out. Currently, now, I speak 5 languages fluently. I understand 2 more of them, and I've had 3 nationalities. I'm a runner. I run. I don't just go next door to Phoenix. You know, I'm going. I'm going to go south until I get to, how far? I don't know. I've wandered into other countries just because I'm running from me. I'd get on trains without a ticket, and I would watch the conductor, and I would just move down the car to car all the way down, and then I'd jump off the train and get on another one and go a different direction. I like to go places. I like to get out. I like to leave. I drank for that reason. I got to get out. I got to check out. They did mental studies when I was a kid for 2 years at UCLA. They studied my mind. They want to know what was wrong with me. And they came up with a lot of labels, which I don't need to share with you tonight. But I have about 13 of them. 13 labels. And I think I was cheated because it wasn't fair. They allowed me to say whatever I felt and thought, which don't ever let me do that. They told me, say whatever you feel. Say it the way you want. Do what you want. I'm like, you kidding me? I want to destroy things. I love punk rock. You know, I'm listening to punk rock when it first came out, and I felt soothed like a baby on a swing listening to my slamming music. I loved that feeling of chaos. Alcohol made me not feel what you were doing because I didn't want to. I just wanted to check out. I wanted to take off the glasses and not see you. I didn't want to hear you. I didn't want to see you. You were a blur, and if you were a blur, I was in a better place. I wasn't suicidal, but I acted like I was. You know, I would stand on the Hollywood Hills with my friends, and I'd get a running start, and I'd jump off the hill to the right of the Hollywood sign before the helicopters started. You know, probably another reason they started helicopters around there. You know, because we were climbing the letters all the time like a bunch of losers. Just to jump. Jumping off a letter, that's stupid, right? I mean, you could hurt yourself. But I didn't think of that. I just jumped. And then I'd turn into a Gumby, and I called it bewhipping. You know, just bewhip. I didn't care. I was just a big old, you know, just an idiot. Like, my heroes were people like, you know, Johnny Rotten. I just loved that guy. That guy was a total destruction. You know, I mean, you just looked at him and I was like, you can't do anything right, and I relate. You're perfect for me. And I would love that kind of stuff. You know, that was just my mentality. I kept drinking. One day I decided I was going to amount to something. I was going to buy a one-way ticket and then join the French Foreign Legion. I thought that would fix it. I thought if I did that, I can go kill Gaddafi. He's never stolen my bicycle or broken into my parents' house, but somehow the TV told me he was my enemy. So I thought if I go kill him, I'll be the hero because I'm not going to amount to anything. I'm going to end up a John Doe tag, gutter, nothing. So I bought a one-way ticket, one of the many places I disappeared to. I ended up over there, and now I don't speak French. You have to speak French when you're in that military, and they won't let you talk in any other language but French. And so I showed up with the school French, you know, like, bonjour, comment allez-vous? And they're like, blah, 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 blah. Like, what are you yelling at me for? And bang, I'd see somebody get hit. So I learned to just stay in the middle, you know, and I joined there. I became a Sergeant Airborne. My first deployment was in Lebanon. I was ill-equipped to deal with life on life's terms, and I was in charge of 9 guys. And I got everybody to understand that if they brought me alcohol, if they gave me wine, they would not have to do guard duty from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Okay? Now you guys, a lot of you guys have been in rehabilitation centers, correct? And they have rules at these places depending on what level you're at. I was like the house manager or the director, and they were like the FNG level 1 guys, that weren't allowed their phones. So whatever I asked them to get me, they would do it so that they would get their phone privileges. Imagine that. You know what I'm saying? So they're not doing guard duty. I'm wasted. I'm passed out. Nobody's guarding our perimeter, and we're in a bad place. So I was a terrible example of an NCO. Terrible. But I'm drunk. I don't care, and I'm paranoid, and I got weapons, and I got guys that'll listen to me with their weapons. So I'm self-destructive, and I got reprimanded on the radio several times. It was not good. Ethiopia was happening. I went twice to Ethiopia. They had a famine going on for a little while, and I went once, and nothing got good, and I went again, and I'm like, I didn't do anything good the first time. What are you going to send me again? I didn't understand what I was doing there because we weren't really being effective. We were supposed to guard the planes as they arrived on the tarmac and allowed the food to come in so that the poor Ethiopians that were dying of starvation would have food. But we knew what was happening. What was happening was this food was getting into these pallets. They'd get on these trucks, and they'd ride out into the desert, and about 3 clicks down the road, the warlords would hijack the food trucks and take over and stay in control of the country. I knew that. Anybody with their eyes open could see that. And what was I doing standing there with my weapon guarding the food from the very people that were starving to death in front of me? These poor Ethiopian ladies with their babies dying of starvation in front of me. Watched one after another just die. The baby still nipple sucking, the mom would die. Or the baby would die, and I got one, thanks. I'm well trained. And twice I went to that thing. There's a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? When I came home to Los Angeles, California, I didn't come home to, settle down, get a wife, get a white picket fence. I had not expected to live through that, and I came home, and I started feeling worse. I needed to get drunk more, and I couldn't keep getting drunk enough, I just couldn't get drunk enough. And then I realized drunkenness was causing me problems. A boss would tell me, when I got a new job, you can't drink during work, right? Have anybody ever heard that bummer? You can't drink during work. That's not fair. I drink. Can't I just stay mellowly buzzed all the time? Leave me alone. I'm more effective. I'm not going crazy if I'm a little drunk. Just let me drink a little bit. How about just beer? I'm not going to drink. I'm going to lose my job. I need to keep this job. I need to make some money. I got to go to China. I got to become a rice farmer. That's my next plan. I'm going to China next. I'm going to become a rice farmer. But I had run out of money. I needed a job, so I got a job. And then I can't stop drinking because I say I'm not going to drink. And then my friend showed up at the job during my lunch. And, of course, they offered me free alcohol. And I start making, new rationalizations. Well, I meant I wasn't going to buy the alcohol, but if it's free, I'll drink it. And just quit. I ran out of excuses. I just couldn't hold the job anymore. I couldn't stop drinking. And I had to admit it to myself. Nobody else around me was telling me that. I ended up hiding in a crack house in Pacoima because of legal problems. I was getting chased by the LAPD and lawyers. And I was hiding in a crack house because, one, I'm not a drug addict. I don't do crack, right? So I'm hanging out at a crack house because all you crackheads are just way worse than me. So I'm just going to hang out at a crack house because I'm just an alcoholic. Maybe I'll smoke a little weed, but I ain't doing nothing else, And at the time, I'm bringing this girl who in AA I heard them call it a hostage. She's my girlfriend. But, a hostage is like somebody you take along the ride to hell with you. And we were on a run. And she was the perfect girlfriend. She never asked for any alcohol of mine. The perfect girlfriend. I didn't have to share my stash with her ever. The perfect girlfriend. Never opened her mouth to say anything to me unless I asked her a question because she was a little bit introverted. Turns out she had low self-esteem. I didn't know that. And one day at the crack house, somebody had offered her something. And do you have a big book here? Anywhere? Anyway, there was a big book at the table at this crack house. One of the few things furnished of this crack house. Crack houses don't have a lot of furniture, and if it is, it's broken or holes in the walls. So there was this one book, and it was a big book, and she grabbed it and hid behind it like like we were vampires, and like it was a cross. I'm like, lady, you're just embarrassing me. We're guests at this crack house. Chill, girl. Relax. If you don't want whatever they're offering you, slide it over to me. If I don't want to use it, I can sell it to a crackhead. Leave it down. But then she says the worst thing she could have said. I'm 90 days sober. You imagine anyone here 90 days sober around? You imagine hanging out at a crack house with me before it was not, I knew I was going to hell. I was born a Catholic, right? Because that's what you're getting thrown into when you're born as a Catholic. I was already baptized and all those things. I had already broken all the rules. I knew I was already going to hell for all the other things. Now I'm going way down to hell because I just brought a newcomer to a crack house. That's terrible. I mean, that's worse than grabbing a rehab reject to one of your crackheads down here in Prescott. Right, Christopher? Terrible. I know you relate because I've seen you do it. That's what I did. Who am I to judge you? You know, I am an alcoholic who does stupid stuff. It's all about me. It's all selfish, self-centered. It's not my fault. If you didn't hang out with me, you wouldn't have gotten caught. That's not true. If you didn't hang out with me, that's not true. Couldn't find the solution anymore. It's like I found out that I was the common denominator everywhere I went. You know, I always had excuses for everything I did, and at the end, I just couldn't come up with excuses anymore. You know, I was always the guy who said, it's not my fault. Leave me alone. Get off my back. I'm a grown-ass man. I know what I'm doing. I'm not hurting anybody. And if you're hurting, it's the way you took it. You took it wrong. Why do you have to love me? Why don't you leave me alone? Except I don't want you to leave me alone. I want you to love me enough to give me the money. I want you to love me enough to co-sign my BS. I want you to love me enough to wire me some money overseas. But at the end, I just couldn't, I had no more excuses, you know. And I remember I took this girl to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, like this meeting, you know, but it was in a parking lot. It was in Burbank at the Angelino Club. And I pulled up in my alcoholic car. And I'm not going to AA, right? I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but when I went to the AA meeting, I felt like I'm not an alcoholic. All right, maybe I'm an alcoholic, but I got so many other problems that they can't help me. I got way more problems. I got problems other than alcoholism, and you guys will never, ever help me with it. Because if alcohol was my only problem, I'd be in like Flynn. But I got so many problems. So I sat in the parking lot because I believed what I was telling myself, right? And I drank my Seagram 7 and Old English 800 in my parking lot because that was my drink of choice. Old English 800, tall can, and Seagram 7 flask. 7 and 8, right? Why waste your time with 7-Up? 7 and 7, that's like near beer. I wouldn't understand that. So I'm sitting in the parking lot of an AA meeting, and they had a coffee break. During the coffee break, a guy named Joe Gomez comes out of the meeting. And Joe Gomez was a man with a patch on his eye. And him and a guy named Frank V. and a guy named Danny T. had tried to carry the message to me a few years earlier when I was a teenager running amok. You know, when the well-meaning parent or the well-meaning neighbor or the well-meaning neighbor's mom or the well-meaning teacher hits bottom on you and sends you off to help, you know. I don't know if anybody's ever been sent to get help, like a rehab, because mommy and daddy hit bottom. So when I was a teenager, somebody must have called these guys up, and they came over in their motorcycles, and they picked me up and took me to NA meetings, Narcotics Anonymous. And they were the founders, these people were the founders of what Narcotics Anonymous was in Southern California. And they were important people in my life, but I was too young. I'm not 38 years old. I'm not done. That's how I saw things. I saw like, when I'm 38 years old, then I'll be old and then I'll quit. But I'm a kid. I'm a teenager. Leave me the F alone. I don't want what you have, at least not now. Thanks for the information. 20 years from now, I'll go there when I'm done. I'm still enjoying it. It was still working at the time. I was invincible. I was still about to do my adventures. I was still, the promise of tomorrow was still alive. I was ready. But when I came to that meeting and sat in the parking lot drinking Seagram 7 and Old English 800, I had no longer the ability to get a job, make any money. I couldn't sell you anything. I couldn't con you into one more thing. I was out of answers. My scorecards read 0, and I was sitting in my car trying to devise the plan, and the only plan that I'd come up with was I'm going to buy a one-way ticket, and I'm going to go to China, and I'm going to become a rice farmer because I don't want to go to jail, because I'm a runner. But I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money for the plane ticket, so I wasn't going anywhere yet. I was just devising the plan. And I'm drinking in the car, and I saw Joe come out of the meeting. And Joe invited me. I actually got out of the meeting. I was like, I remember that dude. I don't know if you ever seen somebody that tried to carry the message to you, and then years later you were in rehab number 7 or whatever, and there he is again, still sober, pissing you off. So I showed up and I was like, Joe. And I wanted to go up to him and say, do you have any idea how I can get to China to become a rice farmer? That was my intent for that conversation to take place like that. And what came out of my mouth was, he said, how you doing? He hadn't seen me in a couple of years. I was just that guy I was just another precomer, not even a newcomer, just a precomer he had met along the way. And he said to me, I said, I don't know, how are you doing? And the only thing that came out of my mouth was, you know what, Joe? I've been on a merry-go-round and I can't get off. I've just been on this merry-go-round and I don't know how to get off the merry-go-round. And I'm done. I don't know what to do. I don't know that I want what you have because you guys are just alcoholics. Seems pretty simple if that was my only problem, but I got really deep-seated issues. I got rooted problems. I have many problems that are other than alcoholism. You're not going to understand. How can you help me? But I was done. So instead, what I said was, I've been on a merry-go-round and I can't get off. I was at a point of the first half of that first step. I was powerless. I admitted I was powerless. And for somebody who was once a super-duper paratrooper, Sergeant Airborne, all that, deploying, and to be able to admit powerlessness, it took a while, and it took what it took. And alcoholism and, my bottom is mine. Please don't think that you have to buy a one-way ticket and join the French Foreign Legion and deploy a few times to hit a bottom. The outside world does not change. It's not necessary that the outside world be any similar. What mattered to me was I had to find a place where I couldn't con another person into anything else. That's what happened to me. If you can still tell your mommy and daddy to pay for your rehab, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe you'll get a change of heart. But maybe you'll just be another precomer. You know what I mean? Because if you still got a ticket, you still got a garage to go hang out at, you still got an abandoned car to go sleep in, maybe you're not done. And you know what? It doesn't have to even get that way. You don't have to. I'm trying not to use descriptive profanity. You don't have to sell yourself on the streets, whether you're a man or a woman, to a man or a woman, in order to hit bottom. It's not a requirement, but some people think they do. You don't have to... my bottom was inside. It wasn't outside stuff. I hadn't lost a career. I just couldn't hold a job. I hadn't lost a wife because I had never been faithful to a girlfriend, let alone get married. I didn't have any kids that I knew of. But I had hit bottom like nobody else had, like anybody in AA I'd heard could. And I didn't think that you guys could help me because I was young. I was 21, almost 22 years old. How can you guys help me? I'm a youngster. I didn't know what to do. But I came into that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a speaker meeting like tonight, and the dude from the podium was a member of the band, the Sex Pistols, and he was sober, and he was speaking, and I was like, God is working in my life, because nobody else could I have listened to than this guy. And everyone was laughing, and I had no humor in me at the time, like a lot of newcomers tonight. They don't have no humor, nothing's funny, and I was like, I was not happy, I was not laughing. Everybody was laughing, and I thought, there's nothing funny about any of this. This sucks. But Joe told me where there was another meeting that same, the next week at the Angelino Club, and I went the next week, Do you have literature here anywhere? Literature? No, I'm not asking you to get me one. Where is it? Point. Okay, listen. If you need literature, it's where? In the office on the shelf where it shouldn't be. Pay attention, newcomer. If you have a literature commitment, you drop the ball. I didn't go to the literature table where they had the literature laid out for one reason. Because I thought if you saw me go get literature, you'd know I didn't know what I was doing. And I needed to impress you total strangers with the fact that I knew something. I didn't talk to anybody because I didn't want you to know how I felt. And the only thing that was coming out of my mouth was pain. I did not want you to know about me. I was in pain. And I thought I had an image to uphold, which you didn't even know me. So what kind of image do I got to uphold? And I wore a hat, and I had it low down. It was a Moorfelt hat. Anybody know what a Moorfelt hat is? A little short brim. I stole it off of Tozar from the NH boys. I took his chick and his hat and his place he lived at, and I let him know about it when he was trying to bang it in the door while I was doing something that I'm not going to share about at the podium. That hat meant to me. I'd earned that hat. You know what I mean? Like a knucklehead. Don't tell me to take my hat off at a meeting. I earned that hat. That's like a medal. I know what a medal is. But I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I heard the message and I heard the language of the heart. I started listening to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings for the similarities. I didn't know that you didn't have to do the same things that I had to do. I heard, what I was listening for was, I had to ask myself, do I have a history of a drinking problem? That's all I got to ask myself. And if I do have a history of a drinking problem, regardless of all the other problems other than alcoholism that I have, because I came with a lot of them, if I have a history of a drinking problem, do I have a desire to stop drinking? If I do, then I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous at that moment. And when I stop having that desire, I can cash in my membership card. No one here is going to force me to keep coming back. They just suggest that I keep coming back if I meet the criteria of being an alcoholic or a person with a history of a drinking problem. I drank, chiefly for the effect produced by alcohol. At some point, I couldn't stop on my own. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I could stop on my own. Because trust me, if I could stop on my own, I wouldn't be here on a Wednesday night. I wouldn't. But the ability to stop drinking was impossible for me. I couldn't stop. I could give up weed if I needed to, although I loved it. I could give it up if I wanted to. Like, I knew that was a problem for somebody, so I'm not going to, I knew that if I didn't take Percodans, probably a good idea, although I took a couple of them. I knew if opium was a problem, that I'd just get off of that, because I had a little opium fun, but not a lot, just a little. I knew peyote was, I thought peyote was great. But I was into tripping. You know what I mean? I would read Carlos Castaneda, and I was like following the Yaqui Indians and Don Juan, and I got to go wander into the desert and get some, I like that. I like to take magic mushrooms in soup form with the nahuatl, and I love that. But those weren't problems for me. I couldn't stop drinking. That was my problem. I had problems other than alcoholism. I'll tell you that right now. You deploy a few times, you're going to come home with a few problems other than alcoholism. I threw rocks incessantly. I'm a liar. I'm a cheater. I'm a thief. I don't think I'm a thief. I have denial. I don't think I'm stealing. Although I have 52 bikes in my backyard that don't belong to me originally in my parents' garage, and I'm taking them all apart and putting them together differently because I'm in business. I'm finding them in your backyard, in your garage, on the street. I'm finding people's dogs. I'm calling you up. Hey, is there a reward for this dog? I'm finding it in your backyard. I'm leaving the gate unlocked because I want you to think that your stupid penny got away and then, hey, I got $50 coming, right? 20? How about 10? How about $5? No, I didn't steal it. I don't know where your dog is. Click. You know what I mean? I'm a liar. I'm a cheater. I'm a thief. I do things that are not appropriate, that are not moral. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, I heard the message of hope, and that hope was that if I did whatever the people that looked like they were doing it were doing, then maybe I'll get what they're doing, what they're getting. And I remember when they gave out these chips meant more to me than any medal I'd ever earned, to be perfectly honest with you, as sincere as I could be. I'd earned some pretty high-speed, low-drag medals, and these chips meant more to me than anything else I'd ever earned. And when they said 30-day chip, August 1st of 1987, I started trying to get sober. April 1st of 1987, I tried to get sober. And August 9th was my first date of permanent sobriety. It took what it took, right? Because I only went to one meeting a week. I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't read the big book. I didn't know about the literature. I didn't know anything. All I knew was whoever shared at the podium that day, that's what I tried to do out there for a whole week. And sometimes I'd white knuckle it, and then I'd go drink some near beer. I knew I wasn't sober. I hadn't been to enough meetings to know the difference, but I knew that's like drinking beer. So I'm just going to get stoned, right? And if I'm going to get stoned, I might as well start drinking some whiskey again. Nowadays, they got Kratom at the liquor store. That's the same kind of thing. I go out. You don't think you're going out on Kratom or whatever? That's your business. I don't care. You could be the pre-comer as long as you want. I don't care. That's what I did. I was a pre-comer as long as I could. I made people mad at me at meetings because I kept coming back. They said to keep coming back. I never thought people were going to stay sober, so I just kept coming back. And the only reason I kept coming back was because this chick insulted me at a meeting. That's why I kept coming back. I'd taken a 30-day chip. I'd made it to that 30 days. And I'm going to try to recreate how that experience went down. Oscar alcoholic. Thanks for 30 days. Yakety yak, bak, bak. Then I sat out. I didn't know what to do. My first time I took a 30-day chip, I had no self-esteem. I did not have low. I had no self-esteem. Trust me, I didn't. And I sat down, right? And I'm bouncing off the walls like Christopher was when he was brand new. Bouncing off the walls. I did not handle reality yet. And I'm saying, blah, blah, blah. And she said, looked at me and she goes, man, don't lie to me. You're not even sober. Now I got my feelings hurt because I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got a 30-day chip. It's legit. It's real. I didn't do this as a trick. And I whipped out my little black book and I checked it, and there were 30 days of nothing in them. You know, I had not done anything. I used to take notes about where and what and how and who, and, you know, there's a repeat offender. I can go back to him on Tuesday. You know what I mean? I had 30 days. I got a resentment on her because she didn't believe me and made me feel bad. And I had misunderstood what you and Alcoholics Anonymous were telling me. I thought you said that I, the 30-day wonder, was the most important person in the room. That you could not talk to me that way. I didn't understand that we're here to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers, regardless of how long you're staying sober. It doesn't matter whether you have 10 days or 10 years. If you're suffering, that's why we're here tonight. To carry the message of hope to that person. If you're not suffering, it's fine, no big deal. Then if you're not suffering, then find that person that's suffering tonight and carry the message of hope to the next suffering alcoholic. Because you might know who it is and I don't, right? Because maybe that person won't feel comfortable to talk to me. But maybe they'll feel comfortable talking to you. And if you're not feeling like you're suffering and you have a little bit of hope, the way I've learned it in Alcoholics Anonymous is I have to carry that hope to the next alcoholic who's still suffering. That's the only way I'm going to keep it. If I want to rechamber my rounds into my clip, I need to carry the message of hope. I need to shoot those rounds out of hope. Does that make sense? Because it made sense to me. That's how I saw the world anyway. So I got a resentment. I got this girl, 30 days sober, gives me a resentment. I'll show you. I'm going to outlast you, young lady. I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to get one of those sponsors. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to wait for you to drink. And when you drink, I'm going to hope to be there at that meeting when you're drunk. And I hope you die. And when you die, I'm going to piss on your grave. And that is why I got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is my truth. That is my truth. Anybody that wants to verify it, I got losers that are still alive that will qualify that. I did not know how to live life on life's terms. I didn't. So it doesn't matter why you're here. If you're here to prove your parents wrong, or somebody's promised you a car if you come back from rehab with a clean slate 30 days later, whatever, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I got a sponsor to outlast that resentment. But the day I got my sponsor, here's what changed. Here's the difference between compliance and inspiration. Here's the difference, because that's the crossroads, right? A lot of us are compliant. We do what they're telling us to do to keep the heat off. We got to stay in this system because, the lawyer told us if we hang out here, the DUI is not going to look as bad. You know all that game, right? We know the BS. We know the game. We're cons. So here's compliance. That's compliance. I'm just being compliant. I ain't doing it out of inspiration. I'm just doing it compliant. And I got that sponsor out of compliance. Actually, I got that sponsor out of resentment. And when I asked him to be my sponsor, I didn't want what he had. I didn't know what he had. Here's all I knew. I ended up at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody shook my hand, which was not usual. Like tonight, not everybody shook your hand, right? You didn't shake everybody else's hand, right? Maybe because of Corona. Who knows? But at this meeting, everybody shook everybody's hand. And they tried to make me feel welcome. And I brought my hostage with me on the back of my belt loop. Like, you go sit in the back corner of the wall. Don't let the dudes talk to you because they're going to take you from me. Because I had issues, right? No self-esteem. I don't even have a job. All you got to have is a job and you can have her. I mean, she's going to go, whoa, you have a real driver's license? This loser he has no brakes. You know what I mean? So I didn't come to the meeting all excited. I actually showed up at that meeting for the first time, not looking for a sponsor, but because Craig Hampton had handed his card to this chick's mom. She was a grocer at Ralph's. And her mom was. And she came home and says, honey, look, this young man, Craig Hampton, he has this card. He wants you to go to a meeting. I have the disease of perception. I haven't worked any steps in my home. He wants to take my chick. I'm going to go shank a fool. Let's go to that meeting. Come on. Let's go to that meeting. Come on. We'll go to that meeting. Let's go. So I showed up at that meeting. Looking for Craig Hampton. Anybody seen Craig Hampton? He got sober in 1986. Maybe he's still around. I hated him. I wanted to shank him. Showed up at that meeting and everybody shook my hand. I didn't know what to do. Because I have a disease of perception. I know you're just here to talk to me so you could talk to her and you want to take her away from me. I got nothing after that. I got nothing. But I noticed that everybody seemed happy. They were involved. I had just stumbled into the most active meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous I'd ever found in the world. I'm the sickest member of Alcoholics Anonymous that ever crossed those doors. I need the most help. So I'm going to wait for the last guy to leave that meeting, and I'm going to ask him to be my sponsor because he's going to be the most active member of AA and the most active group. I need the most help, and that's why I got a sponsor that night. That's how I picked my sponsor. This guy's name was Steve Sterling. I did not know him from Adam. As a matter of fact, when I got to know him, I hated him. But he was my first sponsor because he was the last guy to leave the most active AA meeting. I did not know the only reason he was the last guy to leave the meeting was because he was in charge of cleanup and he had to lock the door behind everybody. But I got one, and after I asked him to be my sponsor, I made a decision to myself. And if you're not paying attention yet, this is the most important thing when I asked him to be my sponsor. I made a deal with myself, not with him, not with no rehabs, not with no psych wards, not with no hospitals, not with the police department, not with the parole officer. I made a deal with myself that I was going to do whatever he asked me to do, unless it was illegal or immoral. Right? Try that. It worked for me. I hated him early because once I saw him in the light of day, he looked just like John Elway. And I'm a Raider fan. I hate John Elway. I'm looking at this dude and I hate him. I don't know where you come from. Maybe Wisconsin. A lot of people move out here from Wisconsin for a couple of months. Imagine the enemy of whoever you guys don't like, Frank Tarkenton, all right? Whoever imagine your sponsor looks like Frank Tarkenton, if you know who that is. I don't know. I hated this guy. He looked like he was born behind a white picket fence and raised in suburbia. He had no idea where I came from. You don't understand. My case is different. That was my broken tape. Every time somebody said something to me, you don't understand. You don't know me. You don't know nothing about me. Get out of my face. But I didn't say that to him because I made that decision. And I'd say stupid things to him like, okay, Spons. He'd say, get to the meeting early. Okay, Spons. Did you drink once a week? No. How often do you drink? Well, about every day. Something. I did something every day. He goes, well, then go to a meeting every day. What? I shouldn't have said that. When did you go to parties? Were you the first one to get to the party or the last one to leave? Spots, I was the last one to shut it down. I drank that keg till it was done. He goes, good, you're on cleanup. I'm like, what? That guy's tricking me in all kinds of game. I got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of us were getting sober at the same time. I don't know if it's happened to you, but it happened to me. All of us getting sober at the same time, had relatively around the same amount of sobriety, had been reading the books together, had been going through the steps together, and the common questions we had at coffee after the meetings, while we were griping about the old-timers and how mean they were and how strict they were and how they don't understand us, we'd all say the same thing to each other. Hey, what step are you on? Well, you're only on your first step? What's wrong with you, dude? I'm already going to have a sponsor meet me. We're going over our fifth step this weekend, man. What's wrong with you? I mean, that's the kind of conversations we had. We had those kind of conversations. Did you tell your sponsor about that? No, it's none of his business. You know what I mean? That's what we talked about at coffee. All of us newcomers. The least likely to succeed, you put us together and we become the most capable. Because you don't need me. I need you. I can't do it alone. And if you guys are around me, then we identify with each other and laugh at each other's same stupidities. And go, wait, I'm not terminally unique. Maybe you too have had that. Maybe it's not that bad. So I got a friend. That's what I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. Get a friend. Somebody I could tell the truth to. Because I'm a liar. And if I get a friend, I can tell the truth to somebody about what's really going on. And maybe that friend, if he's a real friend or a good friend or somebody's heading towards sobriety, that person might say something like this. Have you talked to your sponsor about that? And I would obviously say, sponsor doesn't know nothing about her. If he found out about her, he'd shut it down. I know, I heard it at the meeting. Fear haunts me at every pass, right? So I did what my sponsor asked me to do, read the big book, went through the steps as best I could. There's no diploma at the end. Maybe at a rehab there's a diploma, but in AA there isn't. In AA there's no diploma. It's one day at a time. All I have is today. I may be sober over 33 years, but that really is not important. What is important is what did I do when I woke up? Upon awakening. Did I look at the first 24 hours, the next 24 hours ahead? Did I think about somebody other than myself? Did I try to align my thinking with whatever concept I've come to believe is a power greater than myself's thinking? Have I gotten rid of a bunch of old ideas that were useless in my life so that I can apply these new concepts in order to carry the message to the next suffering alcoholic, as broken as I can be or as okay as I can be? Did I finally find a way to trust in a power greater than myself? Regardless of what I thought it was, because nobody cares what it is, really. I don't know anybody here is going to tell you that it has to be a certain thing. Matter of fact, everyone I've ever talked to said, whatever works for you, right? Grab what you can from whoever you believe is doing it, and then grab from the next person, and grab from the next person, and build your own smorgasbord. Mix your suicide guide. Who cares? I called mine homie for a while. What's up, cuz? That's what I called him. I would, insulting the old timer. That's what I thought I was doing. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to call him homie. Okay. As long as you're not it, all right, I'll do that. I got sober. I stayed sober a year. I don't know how that happened. 37 people lost money on me making a year because they bet against me. That's the truth. Because I found the letters, the birthday cards. I lost $1 on you. I found 37 cards in May that my dad had a box. My dad recently passed away. He had a heart attack and died in March, the beginning of Corona, and I wasn't able to go to Los Angeles and help with the, getting rid of all the stuff and helping sell the house and all that, right? But when I did make it out there in May, in the very back of this box, in the very back of the garage, was a box of stuff that my dad held precious to him, maybe. And it was letters that I got, my first birthday, all my birthday cards from my AA birthday. I had a birthday party for my first year. I got sober. I re-enlisted in the U.S. military this time. I went to Bosnia as a Sergeant Airborne in Special Operation Forces at a PSYOP. I did 9 months over there. There was no Zoom. There was no internet. There was no AA meetings. Nobody there was an AA. The only way I stayed sober over there was people would write me letters. APO. They'd write me letters. And I had kept all those letters, and my dad had all those letters in that box. I turned 9 years sober in Bosnia. Job or no job, wife or no wife, it doesn't matter. If I want it, I will get it. I learned to be a good example of Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned to be a good example of an NCO. I learned to be a good father. I got somebody pregnant on accident, and then I became a single father. I'm a recovering hoe. That's an outside issue. That's a problem with alcoholism. Recovering hoe means I don't practice. I don't need anyone to validate me anymore. But I have to know who and what I really am through working the steps, the fourth and the fifth step, to become and to have the hope that I can become what I can be. Otherwise, I'm just a precomer. You know what I mean? I'm just compliant. I need the inspiration. If you're not inspired, there's no dues or rules or anything. The door is open. You can come back when you are done. If you still have an ace in your back pocket, use it. Who cares? It's going to make a great story when you're 33 years sober. Who cares? But if you're done and you want to carry the message of hope to the next suffering alcoholic, there are people in this room that might need to hear that from you. I won't be able to reach them like you will. There's no way. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous and you're done and you want what we have, which is just a little bit of happiness, some hope, and some freedom, do what we've done. It's not that hard. It's really built for knuckleheads like me. I hope you got something out of that, because I know I did. Thanks.
Thank you, Oscar.